Phil.
Okay, William, we're good to go, sir.
Well, guys, welcome. You know, tonight I'm so excited about tonight's call, which we're actually pre-recording because these amazing ladies are so busy that we had to track them down and find a time where we could all get together. And today's guests, we have Buffy Donahoo, naturopath, and Dr. Carolyn Hoffman. And you guys, welcome. Thanks for being with us.
You're welcome. So much for having us.
Hey, awesome. Hey, real quick, Carolyn, start with you. Give us just a brief description of who you are and what you do.
Yep, I'm a board certified naturopath. I'm also an advanced digestive health specialist, so I function in enzyme therapy. Have a background also in things like lymphatic therapy, homeopathy, basically just a bunch of tools, because our goal is to find out which tool is going to help somebody get to the root of what the issue is. So natural health without the drugs, that's my field. I'm traditional naturopath.
Fantastic. And Buffy?
Yes, I'm a traditional naturopathic doctor as well, and I'm board certified in complementary and alternative health. I learned about natural health when I lived in Germany about 30 years ago. That was my first introduction, and I've just been engaged in it ever since and loving it. So I'd love to help people make smarter choices and better lifestyle choices, and just healthy.
Fantastic. And where do you guys live?
Virginia.
Virginia.
Yep.
Oh, excellent, excellent. So how does, you guys both discovered ASEA, and like all of us, right? There was this exploration. You had to take a look at it and see if it fit into, and now we understand that it does fit very well into natural care. And you guys have been very successful in integrating this into your practices. Tell us what, and Buffy, let's start with you. What excited you in the beginning about discovering this technology, and how did you recognize it to be different than what other things are out there?
Oh, great question. I recognized it to be different, first and foremost, because it's something that is created within ourselves, within our bodies already. We're created to have redox molecules. We're not created to have anything else that we will supplement, as far as we can pick blueberries and we can eat blueberries and we can digest and assimilate that if our system is properly working. But redox molecules, it's already within us. And so that struck me, and that really grabbed me to learn more about it. And then secondarily, I had my own amazing experience with it, and that had me, because I hadn't found anything else that I had been working with, and I have access to practitioner only products and folks, and nobody could resolve my issue that was going on, and not myself either. And so, I'm a consumer. I'm a very, very happy consumer of it as well.
Fantastic. And just in a few seconds, tell us what was the challenge that you were able to overcome?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I had a tailbone injury, and you would think that that's pretty simple, and then that would just go, resolve itself over time. But I had that issue for a good 5 years, and I went to many, many smart, very, very capable people to try to get me out of discomfort, which was anywhere from an 8 to a 10 on any given day, and I was in excruciating discomfort. Getting up from a seated position, or getting up from anything, or bending over and picking things up. It was absolutely impacting my life on every level you could completely think of. So I stopped sitting down, and that was very, very difficult. And I got adjustments. I did all kinds of therapy that most people think of, and therapy's way outside the box, and nothing was holding me where I needed to be. And I discovered redox signaling and started supplementing with it. And my goodness, within 8 days, I had zero discomfort anywhere in my body. And that's been 1.5 years ago, and it hasn't come back really anywhere. And what else do you know that's out there that does that, except for a body that's been created by God to repair?
Oh, that's so great. That's so great. And Carolyn, what was your aha moment in the very beginning? What got your attention?
Actually, what got my attention was my husband. The funny story is that with so many of us in the naturopathic field, when we end up sharing how we got into ASEA and when we had our aha moment, it seems that we gave it to our husbands. My husband had struggled with a 26-year relationship with not being able to breathe and exercise without needing assistive technologies, or a lot of treatments and visits to the ER. And about 2010, when I was actually in partnership with a DO, and Buffy and I are long-standing friends, but she came to that clinic, functional medicine clinic, and we were trying to treat her for these issues. Someone had shared with me ASEA at that point, but I was really on the path of a product that deals with NRF2. And so I dismissed it entirely, not really appreciating the significance of what ASEA was. Maybe we could have had you much better, much quicker, Buffy, if we'd had it on board at that time.
Exactly, I know. But then we wouldn't be here.
There you go. So it was 2007 finally got to look at it, to Forest Academy, who actually came into my life at that point. The gel technology caught my attention initially for something that my husband had hurt himself.
Carolyn, I think are you guys hearing okay? It sounds like I can barely hear you.
No, I can't hear it very well.
That's strange.
That's better.
There you are. That's better.
Oh, that must have just gone out for a second. Sorry. So my husband, I used the gel on him because he had something that hurt, and that was, interesting that it changed something in about 10 minutes flat. So I was like, okay, what's this that does this? So that got me interested, and using the technology with him, seeing a change within 2 weeks where he was able to get out and actually exercise and work for over 8 hours and cut down trees and not need anything to help him breathe, that was really significant. It was really significant in another way to me as well, because we had explored the NRF2 protocol for the last 7 years, hoping to make an impact on his breathing. And it had never changed it. I believed in the science, so we used it all the time, but it didn't shift anything for him. And within 2 weeks of using the ASEA Redox, he was out there gaining his life back. So, that was just such a big aha, that what is it that in 2 weeks could make a change that something in 7 years never did?
Wow. I mean, this is so fun. So we understand how ASEA has impacted you and your families. And now we're moving into the integration. So how do you see this impacting, and tell us how it actually has impacted your understanding of what this means for wellness, for not just you and your family, but for your clients?
Do you want to go first? Shall I go first?
Sure.
So for me, when I started reading the biology of this, Dr. Naidu's huge book, and trying to wrap my brain around, did I need this in my practice? How did it compare to nutrition? Was it homeopathy? Was it energy medicine? How was it different? And was it significant? I gradually came to wonder if this was the missing link. Mm-hmm. And it truly has played out to be that. I mean, I now know that that was the truth of my first inkling. And I shared that with someone who had been struggling for 30 years with an infection related to a lot of the animals that we get in Virginia and northern New York area. And her life had been pretty disabled. And as I went through this, I said, I'm wondering if this might be the thing that pulls everything together for you, can help you move to a different place where you haven't managed that in the last 30 years of traveling around, searching out solutions in the same way that you were doing, Buffy, over many years. Right. And that was just a big shift for her that was so dramatic that it made me say, wow, I do think that this is the missing link. And it truly is, because here we have that cellular communication that pulls together and matches with the materials of the nutrition that we provide the body to build the whole block. But how has it changed my work in my practice and what I do with people is I thought of this as something that would enhance what they were using. Nowadays, I truly believe that what people should do is clear the clutter and confusion of nutritional supplementation, because so often, and I'm sure you see it, Buffy, when you work with people, that they're often taking 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, sometimes 10 nutritional supplements.
Yeah.
And I know that we've had this conversation, Jim, about, you know, the pollution within the environment of the body and how nutrition, unless, as Buffy mentioned, you can digest it, which, if you're over 27, you're already on the downhill slide. If you can't digest it, it's like having too much debris and too much garbage in your house that you can never clear out. So now I like to say that I think the best thing to do is to clear the playing field, take a SEA for 3 to 4 months as your baseline, clear the fluid and the environment in which the cells sit so that they can now breathe and they can communicate and they can function. And then it's like, you know, a muddy pond, right? You put a SEA in there, you clear the muddy pond, and now you can see what's below the water. And maybe it's one little thing that needs a tweak by supporting it with LifeMax. Maybe it's one thing that needs a tweak by supporting it with Biome. Instead of, let's have 10 supplements, all of which are actually causing a negative side effect because we really can't digest them and assimilate them and make use of them. So it's a different approach for me now. Now it's like, if you have to make a decision about how you spend your money, put it aside and spend it on this. Because I know that probably 90% of people who do this first may not need to then go burrowing down trying to find other solutions that they're struggling for. That they may have cleared the environment enough to give their body and their cells a chance to actually breathe, communicate, and actually get back into a better place of work.
Excellent, excellent. Buffy, let me actually ask you a little different question.
All right.
So in what's typical in your practice, as I understand it, and correct me anywhere along the way if I'm missing this, but ultimately the goal is to identify what the issue is for people, right? What system might not be working correctly? What's the problem, you know, symptomatically? And so there's a lot of investigative work that goes into what both of you do. How does a SEA, and does a SEA change of how that happens or how it needs to happen? Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. And I love that question because we don't need to drill down and look for all of those things. I used to do that. And I used to take so much time and so much effort trying to figure out what came first. Where is this issue? Well, we have a couple of issues. Which one do I think is most needing to be addressed first and foremost? But that puts me in a position of trying to get into my headspace to try to figure out where I think somebody has that biggest imbalance and that the biggest hot spot, the biggest flame. But the beauty is that the body knows. The body knows where the issue is and where the biggest issues are. And so I love having this discussion with people, and I love telling them, you know, right now, we don't really need to know. I don't need to know all of your health history. I don't need to know all of that because your body knows, and your body knows what it needs to repair in the proper order. So foundationally, let's say, getting back to the previous question, because I do want to address that a little bit to expand on this a little bit more. If we're building a building, right? And we have all of these amazing things that we're going to use for building that structure. We have the best imported bricks. We have all of these wonderful things and these wonderful products. But if we don't prepare the foundation right, that building can just crumble. Okay? So foundationally, the body needs to be communicating properly. So it doesn't matter what we end up putting in. If the communication isn't right, we're all of the age where we remember AM, FM, and ham radio. Right? If part of your body seems to be communicating or communicating in AM, FM, and you're receiving in ham radio, nothing's going to happen. It's just there's a breakdown, right? So a SEA, redox signaling, helps the cellular communication. So everything is, the message is sent properly, the message is received properly. So now everything else that's there, you have this now foundation of reception is proper and delivery is proper. So the foundation is now strong. So everything else that's done is going to be helpful. But once that information is set, nothing else might need to be done because it's like filling in the blanks in a jigsaw puzzle. It's there, and then everything else is it's done. And I know that can sound really simplistic, but the body is so beautiful, and it's created to do everything on its own. And once we get everything in the programming right, everything else can just resolve its own. And so that's why I try to take myself out of the equation, and I try to say, look, let's not change anything about what you're doing right now, whether it's nutritional, because even though you might think that you're reacting to, say, a certain food, a dairy right now, you might not in 3 to 4 months. And if we take that out of your system right now, we're not going to know if that was resolved within this same time frame. So I just let people continue what they're doing, and I say, let's just bring on a ASEA Redox for 90 days or so. I do the same, 3, 4, 5 months, and I just say, let's just give your body a chance to bring you back to balance, basis. It's a reset. It's like a reboot. We start from fresh, and we go on from there. So I don't do the investigative process really until 3 to 4 months later, and I say, now let's come back and see where things are, because in the beginning, we have this health picture on the floor, say it's our home, right? And it's dominoes on the floor. Well, with Redox, we're just going to be kicking down that first domino of all these health challenges and see what falls down, and then what might be left standing in 3 to 4 months. Then we can look at that if we think it's really significant, or we might say, let's just continue going, because that one peg might just down itself too, once things fall into place. And so I think that depending, getting ASEA Redox on board all by itself, right in the beginning, without thinking of anything else, and just stepping back and watching everything happen. That's how I like to work. And it's an easy thing, because then I'm just sending one person away with just the one system. And it's the system of resolution.
This is so great. The mental picture you just created for all of us was fantastic. We're talking about, foundationally. And Dr. Carol, the missing link, we're talking about the foundation, and we're talking about the cells. Give us a better idea of the cell functions and how this interacts with affecting the functions that occur at the cellular level.
Yeah, we often talk, don't we, that we are just the sum of 75 to 100 trillion cells, and that obviously every cell, if it's functioning correctly, means we won't have a problem, right? So if someone is listening to this call and they have something that has already got a name to it, that's come about because those cells have not been communicating correctly for some time. It didn't come yesterday, when the day before you walked into the doctor's office and they gave you the diagnosis, in the same way that when people say, well, I'm drinking this and I don't necessarily feel anything. Well, do you notice and do you feel that your cholesterol is increasing month after month after month, right? You don't feel that, but you walk into the doctor and they suddenly do the blood test and there it is. In the same way that you don't feel when it's going backwards, because it's getting better when you're on Redox. So that is a kind of caveat that I always think is a misnomer for people, that they think they have to feel something, because we didn't feel cancer the day it started. Maybe we knew something 8 years later, because there's actually a long cycle to cancer. It's not a 1 year thing either. So at a cellular level, as Buffy said, we have to have good communication, but the function of a cell is to do 3 things. It is to eat, which is why we provide it nutrition, right? It's the same reason why we fill up the gas tank in our car. We don't fill it up once when we buy it and think it's lasting forever. We don't eat at the beginning of the week and think we're going to survive for the week, right? We eat frequently because we need energy. And I don't think we always think about the fact that when we're putting the food in our mouth, that's what we're feeding. We're feeding the cells the energy to create the energy that moves our body and keeps us alive. So it consumes nutrients, it poops, right? So that's the debris and the junk that we don't want in there, that we have to filter out and flush out of the system. And its other job is to replicate. So as it dies off, its job is to, get replaced. That's what Redox is about, right? Maintaining healthy cells by hearing when they need to be repaired or when they need to be eliminated and replaced. And we need those to be eliminated and replaced to stay healthy. If they do the wrong thing constantly, then we have some kind of dysfunction, some dis-ease. But people don't often realize that every cell is bathed in a fluid called the extracellular fluid. I don't want to get too scientific, but think about it as like a fish in a fishbowl. Okay? That environment should be pristine and clean. And I know, Jim, you said that you know your experience with fish and fish tanks, and you know that you have a good filter and you don't put too much food in. You keep the pristine water in a great condition. The healthy fish live, they enjoy themselves. But let's imagine that we don't do that, that we're polluting ourselves with toxins and pesticides and chemicals and herbicides and all these skincare products that we put on ourselves, and the toxic GMOs in our food. And I mean, it goes on and on. We're at a point in our life where we've never been so polluted. And we know that when they look at the umbilical cords of children, they have as many as 90 or more pesticides in an umbilical child of a child that's just born. That is how toxic we are. So we're not designed, God didn't make our body to be designed to live in this toxic environment. Our liver's meant to be cleaning out something that's way not as toxic as this. So every one of us is struggling. So we need a mega-sized filter in that fish tank, really, to keep that environment clean, but that's not happening. So the environment gets more toxic, it gets more cloudy, but the thing is, the fish can't jump out and go find another place to live and say, let me go live next door in a nice healthy fish tank. I don't want to live in this one, right? I'd like to breathe and survive. And if that toxicity goes on, what do? One morning we walk down and the fish is upside down dead, right? So our cells don't have a choice to go anywhere else. Physiology designs them to deal with the environment. So if we can make that environment healthy, we can allow the cells to breathe, produce energy. Why do we get tired? Why are people tired these days? Because the environment is so toxic, the cells can't produce the energy so that we can stay bright and bouncy, right? And do the things that we used to do when we were younger. So I love the fact that what we're actually influencing here, especially with the increase of glutathione, that master detoxifier, we're cleaning out the fluid which surrounds and bathes the cells. So the cells can now get back to breathing and doing the thing that they're supposed to do. And if we do that, we have communication again. They're producing redox molecules, right? We know they're not producing as many. So we're going to amplify and support that process, but we're going to clean the environment, allow them to breathe, produce energy. That's that ATP piece, right? Give great communication, replicate, do all the right things, which is staying healthy. And so I love the fact, like Buffy said, that's why I come at it a whole different way now. I don't want to have to talk about where is the dysfunction, where's the root of the problem. Let's clean the environment and then let's look at what's left, if anything at all. And I've kind of seen a shift for people that, you know, they move away from needing this massive support of multiple nutritional products, all of which are targeted to one thing or the other. We can be super foundational with source. We can be super energetic by just putting in those additional antioxidant materials to go with the antioxidants that we're producing inside of us. And then we can keep the environment in a great place with the biome. You know, we don't need all these other things, but we just have this global cellular health. I had somebody just texting me this morning about, you know, wanting to help somebody whose child had big issues. And I just said, you know, it doesn't really matter what the name is of what the issue is. It means that the cells aren't communicating, and they haven't been communicating properly. Otherwise, you wouldn't have that problem. So we don't need to say, well, how do I use it for this? Or how do I use it for that? Just drink it and pay attention and observe. Drink enough of it, drink it for long enough, you know, be really realistic. I get very upset when people come to any kind of nutritional approach or supplemental approach and seem to think that there is a higher standard for that nutritional approach to be required to make a miracle change in a week or a month to something that they've had for years. And really, if you think about it, people have blood pressure issues. They go in and their doctor gives them a blood pressure medication or a cholesterol med. Do they say, is this going to cure me in a week? Am I going to be better in a month? Do I have to stay on this medication for the rest of my life? They don't ask those questions. They accept that that's what they're going to have to do, except that we know the drug is forcing the body, and there is always a kickback to that, which is why you get more drugs and increased amounts and all the rest of it. Come to this in a realism that we are foundationally coming in to support the body, to nurture and allow it to restore itself to a better level of optimal communication and therefore outcome. It's really kind of simple. It doesn't need, you don't need to be a rocket scientist. Just drink this every day, drink it long enough. And I often talk to people about the fact that if we think about our bodies as like our houses, when they're new, that's great, but we want to repair on a regular basis. And if we don't repair on a regular basis, at some point we're going to have to renovate. And if we leave it long enough, it's like those antique cars, they restore them, right? They restore them back to the beauty, but they put a lot of work in, and it takes a long time to do that. Do they then stop working on them? No, they continue to restore and renovate and repair and maintain. And we should look at ourselves in the same way. Maintain on a daily basis. And if you've got a challenge, you have a bigger renovation project. So just drink more of it and get more tools on the ground, more communication, more labor, and get your renovation project done faster.
Oh, that's so incredible. You know, Buffy, let me ask you, you know, this is so exciting because we're talking about a pretty significant tool that has been added to your toolbox that kind of creates almost like a paradigm shift.
Oh, yeah.
And so if we're talking about, let me ask you this. So here you are approaching clients, and you've been doing this for a while, not just your practice, but the ASEA part. And so there's got to be like a new level of excitement as you inform people about this opportunity. And that is certainly based on the results that, not just that you've seen in your family and yourself, but what you've seen with your patients. So tell us more about the results and what that has meant to, or perhaps what is the difference that you've seen with the addition of this incredible tool?
Oh, you know, the difference that I've seen with this is I get a lot of tearful calls of joy, and that brings me to a great joyfulness, because I mean, all the time I'm getting people calling me and saying, you're not going to believe what I just experienced this morning, or how I slept last night, or how I was able to walk on vacation with my family, whereas before it would hurt, just getting out of the car, going to the mailbox, and I have my life back. And while even some of those people might have been expecting or hoping for something on a particularly different level, that's giving them lifestyle, that's giving them quality of life in so many ways. And I have people call me all the time and say, how do I tell my sister about this? She's struggling with this or that. And I'm able to tell people, I don't have to be the one to tell them. You can tell them. What you've experienced is so amazing. And all they have to do is do the same thing I've shared with you, is like what Carolyn was saying, drink it. If you feel great, that's great. If you want more benefits, drink some more, drink it longer, apply the topical gel to areas where you have some discomfort or range of motion issues, and just do more if it's not benefiting where you think, or to the level that you want. And it's so individual, and it's so great that we can have this freedom of saying, I don't have to tell you how much, I don't have to tell you when, I don't have to tell you really great significant details about it. Just drink it. Your body's going to know what to do with it. Drink it more often. So I'm able to empower people to be able to help others in the best way that I was never able to do that before. I would be working with clients myself or referring clients out and always making people dependent on somebody else. Whereas they can be dependent on the repair and restoration of their own body, and they don't have to know what it is, how it's working, why this happens. They don't have to go look at the science and look at the research, because my goodness, how many of us looked to see how a cell phone works before we bought one? Right? How many of us look to see how a microwave works before we buy one? We just know it works and we use it and we're grateful for it. And that's, that's really the bottom line that I try to tell people is this is safe. This is in you. You're creating this all the time. You're just creating less and less and less as you age and as you're exposed to stresses and toxins. So if you can replenish that, bring you back up to the level where you were at before, and in your decline as we're producing less and less over time, we just fill that gap back up and just sit back and watch and be amazed. So it's a, I like to say, I have my easy button, and I love that easy button because everybody can have an easy button. They don't have to have the background. They don't have to go to all this schooling and spend all this money and time. Just try it, enjoy it, share it with your friends, bless somebody else, and help us get the word out, because people are hurting. People, in their health, in their wealth. For someone who's looking for something that has purpose and meaning, for people, I find people who are bored in retirement who want to join me and share this. And they say, do I need training? And I say, well, can you drink it? Can you apply it? Can you tell that to somebody else? You're trained. Come help me. Because we need more people that are sharing this, because there's not enough people out here and we truly need help. So I know that's going to be a different part of your conversation, but I'm always looking for people who just want to bless others and in an easy way. And I don't have to give them, really any information other than that.
That is so great. That is so great. Thank you. Thank you. Let me ask you guys, would you say this is one of the most significant, or perhaps even the most significant discovery in your careers?
Mine, certainly. Absolutely. Without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, I will say that this has been the single most influential supplement I've ever come across in tech. I don't like to call it a supplement though, because it's a replenishment.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's a difference. And I worked in the replenishment field about 15 years ago with the first thing that was on the market. And this was the first conversation about replenishment. And replenishment and supplement speak to what Buffy was mentioning about, we don't produce blueberries. Okay? And when you replenish something, you're replenishing something that your body is creating naturally. When you supplement, you're supplementing something that we put into our cells. So you're supplementing your diet with nutritional supplements. But those are not things that we're making inside us in the same way. It's amazing and foundational, as you said, Buffy. You don't need to have anything else. Just, it really amazes me though, doesn't it, you, how people will do so much more investigation about the ingredients that this begins with than they will if they pick up a chip packet that happens to have a new flavor on the counter when they're going through the stops along the highway and they want some food. They'll cruise down the food aisle and pick up a packet, and if they actually turned it over and looked at all of those chemical ingredients, do they bother and say, oh well, I need to know what all of these are before I'll eat it? No, they don't. They open it up and munch away. Well,
absolutely. And that's true. I used to do that in a class that I taught, where I cut out labels of different bread loaf packages. And I had some that were really good and some that were really not so good. And I was actually speaking with a group of senior citizens, and I said, how many of you have ever baked bread? They all shot up their hands, all the gals did. And I said, what were the ingredients in the bread? And could you find them all in the grocery store? And they'd say, yes. Well, it's flour and it's oil and it's yeast. And so I said, okay, that's great. So I want to pass around these little packets, these plastic wrappings, and these are different breads that you can find in the grocery store. Can you actually say, number one, all of those things on there? And, they struggled. And I said, okay, do you know where to source all of those things in that ingredient list? Can you get them all from the grocery store? And they said, well, the number one, I can't say this. I don't know what it is, but no, I don't know what any of this is. And I said, we're eating that every day and we're feeding it to our children. And we don't have any idea what it is and where it's from. And there's 35 ingredients in a loaf of bread that only needs, 3 or 4 ingredients. I used to bake bread, but I haven't done it in a long time. But those are chemicals. Those are things that are added in. Why do we need them? It's to give loft. It's to give it shelf life. And all of those things is, it's all poisoning our bodies. And so exactly, Carolyn, exactly. Fair point. I mean, it's the biggest point that if everybody were to take everything that they put into their bodies and do this investigation, is any of that something that's created in our bodies? No, but yet they don't look at it. But yet when we show them Redox and it's 2 things that are created in our bodies and they want to know, show me everything on it.
Or they say, I have to take this to my doctor, right? Do they walk in with a basket load of food with all these labels and say, tell me if I can eat that bread, or that chip packet? They don't. They consume it because they think it's food, and therefore they think that can be nothing wrong with that. I mean, people who are more educated on the chemicals that are in it will be more careful, but majority of people just don't think about that. And so, coming to that piece with the salt and water piece that gets so many people wrangled up, this is not salt water. It is not table salt, right? There is nothing in here that, even if you're on a sodium restricted diet, means you can't consume this, because a 4-ounce drink of this is equivalent of a half a carrot. So there is nobody on salt restricted
sodium wise,
who cannot eat a half a carrot or drink a glass of water. And the other side is, there's a difference between taking a glass of water and pouring table salt in there and having saline, which is inside the cells. And when we go to an ER, nobody asks you, are you on a sodium restricted diet? So therefore you cannot have a saline bag attached to you if you're in an emergency situation. That just doesn't happen, because it is what we are made of. And without it, we wouldn't survive, which is why they hydrate us with it. But, like you, I always ask those questions when we're sharing this, who bakes? And pound cake is a common thing, and, sugar and flour and butter and those kinds of things. But what's the end result? It's a pound cake. And when people ask people, what are you eating? You don't say, I'm eating flour and sugar and butter. You say, I'm eating a pound cake. And that is the transformation of chemistry that is going on here. We begin with the same components inside, the sodium chloride, hydrogen, and oxygen. The body is brilliant in how it reorganizes it. Rather like a Chinese fire drill, everything runs around and comes back in a different format, right? It's all paired and it does its thing, and it's like a firework. It shoots off, it gives information, and it starts all over again. It's the most perfect recycling process on the planet. Okay? But what we've managed to do here, or not we, but at least the scientists have found a way to do the same thing that the body does in a nanosecond, and put it through this 3-day process to transform through chemistry those components into suspended redox molecules with very little saline, very little sodium. So there is no issue with being able to consume this. And, we know that when you rebuild this, you begin to watch the body do more of what it used to do when it was younger. So that's the cool piece.
Wow.
Oh yeah. And adding on to that, we can't have any, we can't be allergic to it. It's already in our bodies. We're producing it. So there's no reaction that we can have for, an allergic, scenario. And everything that we're also already taking is already interacting with the molecules in our body anyway.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a really interesting thing. I've had people who say this and they worry. And I say, well, if it was a problem, you would already have the problem. You wouldn't be surviving and standing here, because these are the molecules that are keeping you alive in the first place. So, it's we have to be logical, I think, sometimes about these things.
Well, what a great logical way to understand this. What a great conversation to have with people, right? Buffy, I love the bread explanation. Can you go find these ingredients in the store? Why are we so concerned? Why are many people so concerned with trying to figure out, is this something that I shouldn't be taking? I need to ask my doctor. This has been just a fantastic conversation. I am just blown away. I think this is going to be very helpful to a lot of people that are going to see this. Carolyn, let me start with you. If I was a good friend and also a colleague, we've known each other for years, but I've been traveling abroad and we haven't talked in a long, long time. And you certainly haven't, we haven't discussed ASEA, and we were getting together. And again, I'm a really good friend. And ASEA came up in the conversation, which I'm sure it would. What would you say to somebody in a very relaxed environment, again, a colleague, a friend? What would you say? How would you talk about ASEA?
If it's a colleague, I try not to get into long, deep conversations, because I think it's really important not to be a messenger that bores the wits out of people. And, when I first started sharing this, I just simply said to people, this is a new technology that in cellular signaling that wasn't there before. And so questions to the medical community or professionals would be maybe, what do you know about redox signaling? Because most of them, unless they're, they've graduated after 2010, probably have little knowledge of redox and what's gone on. They don't even know that there's been 21 years of conferences annually around the world with all the major medical universities and research sites coming together to discuss the importance of these molecules. So there's so many doctors who they have to take their own time to do that study if they want to know more than what they're functioning in. And most people don't do that. So I would really just say something about, what do you know about redox signaling? Do you know that there's been a development to stabilize them? I actually had a conversation with a microbiologist who knew all about redox. And she was blown away that I knew anything about redox. Because when I said to her, have you ever heard of redox signaling? And she kind of looked at me a bit stunned. And she said, yes, I was doing my PhD research in this. And I said, oh, wow. I said, that's interesting. I said, do you know that they've been stabilized? She said, and she nearly fell over flat on her back. And she was standing there palpitating, holding herself because she was just so stunned to know that she was doing research into what they do. And yet we have the development for the first time commercially of having stabilized versions so that instead of being in clinical research, we as a human population have the capacity to rebuild them for ourselves, which is so cool. Science is looking at what do they do in the body and how to manipulate the drug route and all of those kinds of things. What we're doing here is just simply, or rather what Samuelson has done, is taken a different approach. How do we stabilize them? And so now we have this first and only patented version of, what everybody else is using in clinical research. So I always want to counter people in that way, is to understand that what redox does and the manufacturing of them has been going on for over 20 years. ASEA hasn't propelled that. They're not the ones that have said, this is what a redox molecule does. What they've done is found a way to say, these things are amazing. Science proves that they're amazing. There's clinical research up the wazoo. Go to PubMed and look at it all, right? We know what the clinical community knows what redox does, which is why there's so much money being invested in it. They just aren't looking to find a way to stabilize it. And Dr. Samuelson came at it the other way and has found a way to make these things bioactive and hang around for 15 months. Now you have something that the capacity is to get it out on the commercial market and we can enjoy it. To come back to what you were saying, you were asking, how do I approach doctors? In some ways I try not to. Because
well, really, I'm more interested in knowing how you would talk to a friend that has a medical background.
A friend who has a medical background. Well, I kind of couch those as the same, whether they're MDs or they're NDs or whatever. I mean, if they're in my field, I definitely would want to know, what do you know? Do you know that there's a technology out there that is a patented approach to cellular signaling and can amplify and benefit and support everything and anything that you're doing? If they're, in a field where they're doing a lot of body work, I don't know if you know that there's a really amazing technological development that can really help you improve the health of your clients and can help alleviate discomfort and really get them back into a healing mode much quicker. I think it just depends. I'm not really very much of a cookie cutter person because I converse with people. So my job is not to kind of deliver the ASEA message. My job is to really have a conversation with people and listen carefully to what it is that I think they might want to know that exists. And then, as you said, Buffy, sometimes that's not necessarily about the healthcare thing. Maybe this is about the income thing, because maybe in a healthcare environment, so many people in the natural health field don't make a huge amount of money in the same way that a surgeon might do, and they are often very independently functioning. And therefore, if they're not working, they're not earning. So I will talk to them about the fact that there's a great way to support their clients with a residual income that can help improve your cash flow while you're doing what you love doing. and a way to impact people outside of, your own office. I mean, I had this conversation with a massage therapist the other day, and I said, look, there's a limit to how many people you can see, in the same way as there was for me in my practice. You can only see so many people in a week. Here we get to be able to create a residual income that is passive but is also reproductive, impact the life and the health of people way beyond our personal influence, help far more people than you can ever do on that basis, create something that supports you while you're doing what you love, if that's what your focus is, but have a much, much more impactful influence on the world for, around the world, both health practitioners or even, clients. I love the fact that I've helped so many more people by getting involved with this than I've ever done in my practice.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Buffy, let me ask you a little different question. As we're running out of time here, Buffy, this has changed your life in you shared what it's done for you on a physical level. It's changed your life as it relates to what you do in your life as far as helping people in your practice. How has it changed the future? As you look forward into the future, how has this changed the path that you were on prior to ASEA, and what your future would have been like, and what your future looks like from this perspective today?
Sure. Everything has changed, with the exception of I came into being a naturopath with the purpose of helping others and being as supportive and as helpful and as educational as I can. And that took a lot of time with an individual to go through and sit down with them and, sit with them and help them to learn everything that will help them in their health, even before we got on to talking about supplements. And that was, as Carolyn was saying, you can only see a couple of people a day and a couple of people over a week. And then, they come back in and it's a repeat. And, they might have implemented some of the changes. They might not. They might come back and they might have other questions, or they bring their box full of other supplements and they want to know different things about it. And there's all of these moving parts and things. And with what I'm doing now, the education is so much simpler. As I was sharing before, all I have to tell people is, let's just get this on board for you right now. We're gonna see what this does for you, see how this resets you, see how this brings you to a new picture of clarity in so many different things and in so many different ways. And wouldn't it be amazing if you just, you come back in 3 or 4 months and everything, there's nothing really to discuss. Wouldn't that be amazing? And I actually have had that situation where they'll come in and they'll have 10, 12, 15, 20 things that they have as complaints about their health. And they come back in and, I bring that back out and they're like, wow, I don't remember that. That's gone. Wow. Oh my gosh, this is so much better. I'm good. And so, but the thing for me is I have a bigger reach now. I have a much, much, much bigger reach now because I've shared with a lot of people who now also are interested in sharing. And even if they're not sharing it for the purposes of, say, doing this as a business per se, they just want to get, they may be referring people back to me or to get more information. But there's a replication. There's a natural replication and a natural growth of this where, I might have shared something with somebody in my practice and they might have gone back and told their family, but they would have gotten it all twisted around and it would have been not really understood. And this is simple. Drink this twice a day, apply this to areas that are in discomfort, and tell your friends to do the same. Share some, have some samples, bring your friends back and we can talk about that or get them introduced to it. And then tell somebody that that lives in another country. I mean, the reach of this, because we have modern technology, is so vast. Whereas in my practice, I was really insulated. I'd have a long visit with somebody, and then we'd have a period of time between that where, with this, I'm texting, I'm supporting them with a phone call or with, information online. I can share it with anybody that they want to. The reach is endless, absolutely endless, to help somebody else, And I can't even count. I mean, I guess I could if I sat down and thought about it, but the amount of people that I've helped in the amount of time that I've been in here is mind blowing. And it's, I couldn't have asked for a more beautiful way to help people with my true passion of helping people to help themselves. That's really what it is. We don't want people to be dependent on anybody else. And it's empowerment. It's giving them their own independence.
Well, what a great way to end this conversation, this amazing opportunity that you guys have just created for everybody to learn so much more about not just you guys, but how you approach this, how you see this. And, we're talking about, Buffy, you're talking about paying it forward. How does that not happen? And I so appreciate that, because that's the fastest way to spread anything that's truly incredible around the world. And, it's drink it, wear it, and share it. It really is that simple. You guys, this has been so fun. We definitely have to have you back sometime, because you guys are really great together as well. And I know you've been friends for a long time. It's really been our treat to be with you today. And I know everybody in ASEA and beyond, they're going to really enjoy the conversation that we just had. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
William, I want to ask them a couple of questions. If you need to go, I understand. I know you said you had another Zoom call.
I do, guys. Unfortunately, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you. Jim, you take it away.
Thank you. Do you ladies have a couple of extra minutes?
I do. I want to add something that that William brought to my mind with what he just said: drink it, wear it, share it. I like to tell people that this is drinkable, wearable, shareable, long-term healthcare insurance. That's how I like to look at it.
I love it.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Couple things. When people come see you, they're having health issues, right? How do we approach because that's what I had a meeting yesterday with a friend, an acquaintance from church. He ran security at a huge church. And I met with him about a year ago. I met with him yesterday. And you ladies you're in the medical profession. A lot of people listening to this call are not. So I'm meeting with this gentleman, and he knows that we're talking about ASEA, but we're having a very great just a good conversation. And he brings up that he's leaving today to go see his son. He had to fly to New Orleans. His son's retiring from the military, 100% medical discharge. And he starts to well up because his son's he was in the front lines, 18 years, and he's 36 years old. And he starts to tear up. And last week we had Danielle Matthews, and we hear her story because he's had multiple concussions. This young man, 36 years old, 100% disabled now, and won't be able to work. He can only make $1,500 a year of additional income at 36 years old. And then we've talked to Brendan Nichols, who had a traumatic brain injury from a car accident. And I told my friend, I said, could you help me on how to share this with you? Because I know that what I have will help your son. And it will help you. But I'm a big guy, and this guy's a big guy too. So I said, I know I don't scare you because I'm 6'6", but he's about 6'4" and a mass. He's a weightlifter at 67, still competes. But I said, help me. How do I share this with you? Because I know this will help you. And I know it will help your son to be able to allow his body. And I wrote down something, give your body back to God's way of healing, not our way. But how would you advise me? How do you advise the people out here? That, again, you ladies are medical. They may look up to you. They may take your advice. But for us people out here, because I don't want to come across salesy, and I know I do. And I can come across overbearing and just because we've got so much excitement in what we have. What's your advice?
Good, Buffy?
Yeah. I think I would just tell him that, we can't make any guarantees.
Mm-hmm.
We can't make any promises, and we want to set expectations well. And what we think this can do, it can do all that and more. Because the body's beautiful, and it was created beautifully, perfectly, wonderfully. And he's got, I guess I would really just say you honestly have absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain if you can get it in his body, let his body just have a vacation from everything else that is going on, in the sense of just let him understand that his body already has this. It's already in there, and we're just putting it back in. And so it doesn't have to think about doing something. It doesn't have to break something down and be in the proper way to assimilate it, digest it, because his digestive system, his elimination system has probably taken a hit as well, because of things that he had to breathe, things that were put into his body before he went at the end of a needle. We don't know how that, we do know that all of that has an effect on the body, right? So, and a lot of it happens in the bowels and in the digestive system. And so there's a lot of things that are now askew. Okay. Redox molecules are in there. The more we're exposed to stresses and toxins and pollutants, the less we're actually producing. So his level is up here. If he were a bathtub overflowing, all of that is up here, right? So he can put in the redox molecules. It's not going to add to this, load that he's already got. It's only going to help, and it's only going to help his body to overcome all of that and start to relieve itself of that cellular debris buildup just on its own, just out of urine, because we all have that cellular debris. Think of that fish tank. We all have it. It just matters, what is our level, right? So my guess would be that his level is pretty high. Put in the redox molecules, let it go. But you don't even, I guess just saying back to, you've got nothing to lose, everything to gain, and give it a try, because it's the absolute best thing out there. It's the first thing I lead with, absolutely by far. The only thing I talk about in the beginning, and I say, you might not need the other things that are popping in my brain that I'm thinking you might need. I want to start this first, because I want to save you money. I truly want to save you money. I don't want you to have this and this and this. I want you to have one thing, and hopefully you're not going to need anything else. And in the long run, it can support you in so many ways, including saving you money. And Carolyn?
I guess one of the things that we can definitely talk about is the fact that science is always advancing. It's always moving forward. And that from you, Glenn, Jim, if you're talking from your own perspective, is that, you feel fortunate that you fell upon a newer development in science. Huffington Post happened to talk about it in 2016 as being one of 5 things that they suggested will change the shape of our future. The fact that our body is designed to heal, it's not designed to promote sickness. And we know how good we used to feel when we were younger. Mm-hmm. That we know that this shift and change in the way that our body works, we see as aging. But there is a development in science that is so significant that you would feel bad if you did not encourage him to at least take a look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what he chooses to do with that information is ultimately his. But that this is important enough, and it's not something that is another version of something that's out there. It is a whole new field that has never existed before, and it goes to that cellular communication in a way that is a breakthrough for how we can impact the health of our, you know, our own health.
Yeah.
And that you would just implore him to commit a short amount of time to looking at this and becoming educated, so that you could feel comfortable that even if it's a no, you did the right thing.
You know, and I guess I have a lot of emotion attached, and people sometimes misread that as being salesy.
Yeah.
I was addicted to pain pills. I was on 4 different prescriptions with my 10 back surgeries. And I see so many of these veterans that, you know, we've got a huge VA hospital here in San Antonio. And you see these people that are just broken and hurting. And the system just puts them on more and more stuff.
Right.
And it just breaks your heart. And I guess for the people out there, it's just talk from your heart, right? I mean, just don't try. I don't know. It's just, we know what we have. Us 3 here know what we have. And it's just, we want to just share so much. And sometimes that can shoot us in our own foot.
It can.
But,
I think, you know, we can also say, you know, you know, I'm not trying to sell you on anything, but if you knew what I know, if you'd seen what I've seen in how people's lives have been turned around who have had no hope, you would want to learn this, and you deserve to at least know about it. Yeah. And I feel it's like my moral obligation, because I do care about you and because I do know it, and it feels like it's a secret that I want to give away, a gift that I want to give to you, that I would just at least implore you to become educated enough to decide to give me an educated no, if that's where it goes.
I love that. Thank you, Carolyn. Buffy, any of the last parting words?
Yeah, the thing that came to my mind was, you know, sometimes when I have a hesitation to share with somebody, I'm upfront and I tell them that. And I'll just say, you know, I have something that I'd like to share with you that I wasn't really sure if you would receive this information well, but you've been on my heart and you've been on my mind a lot. And I don't want another sleepless night of me not sharing this with you, because I really think that you need to know about this. Can I tell you what it is? And I get permission in that sense. And so they'll be like, well, sure, you know, that's interesting. And I'll just tell them, I've found something, I'm working with something that is really amazing and it's really incredible. And I do really believe that this can help you or your loved one or whatever the situation is. And I would love to give some information to you. What you do with it, like what Carolyn said, what you do with it is yours, but I can't go another day without telling you about it, because you deserve to know about this. You need to know this exists. And I really wish that I had known about this. Personally, you can, I mean, for me, you know, I tell people, I really wish I had known about this before, when I was struggling for so long. And I kind of, you know, it's like, why didn't, you know, why haven't we heard about this before? I kind of get frustrated with the way things happen, you know, because I wish I had known before, because I could have helped a lot more people.
I know.
And, you know, when that comes from your heart, people feel it, people hear it, people know it, and they can sense it. And you can say, I don't know what you're going to do with this information, but can I tell you what it is? And then when I'm done letting you know the totality of it, you can let me know if this is interesting to you or not, to share it with your family member.
Yeah.
Always keep it about them, right?
Yeah.
Keep it about them.
Yeah. Because it is.
Yeah. And then we can't be salesy.
Right.
Because that's it. It has to be about them. It's not about us and about our outcome. It's about them and their choices. Our goal is just to invite people to step through that process and become educated enough. And we hope that they will see the common sense in using this, because to me it should be common sense. And I would love to position this more as something just simple and foundational for everyone, and not necessarily about, you know, growing the fourth and fifth leg.
Yeah.
Sometimes this comes across as people, you know, and I think that's a challenge, because when we do have these miraculous improvements, because our body jumps up and says, thank you so much, and now I can do the work I should have done, and now I can show you how I should live. You know, it feels like it can be too good to be true. And so it's the challenge, because other people whose bodies don't jump up in the same way, think, well, it didn't work, and that's really not the case. We know clinically it is. But that's just about our own journey and our own body's ability to make that renovation. We want to keep away from the too good to be true, but we know that this is such an influential technology that everybody could use it.
It's such a huge responsibility to Ann and myself that we must, and that's why we do these shows. That's why I'm so thankful that you ladies choose to come back on with us. Because if we don't educate people well enough, and they get on it kind of a week or 2 or 3 or 4 or a month and go, well, it didn't work on me, then they quit. That will cost someone, but we don't know what's going to cost them. It's such a huge burden to bear that that's why William and I started this whatever period of time ago, and why I'm so thankful you ladies joined us to help get the word out. I think if we keep hearing the same message, people will start, and we know this will be a household name in the next whatever period of time. Every home will have Redox in it. Every home.
We're the pioneers.
Exactly.
The pioneers are in a lonely space, but there are more people joining us, and that's the cool piece. But just have the patience to dig in and keep sharing. Exactly. And whether you share or whether you don't share, you change someone's life.
Right.
I mean, it's the relay race, right? You hand off the baton. Where does that go? We don't have control, as you said. It's an organic process. That's kind of why I saw this blossom so fast, because I shared with a few people who then suddenly they were off and running. You can't stop someone. You can't say, well, you can have this, but you mustn't go and tell anyone when you get a great response, right? You can't stop it. And so if you share with that person that you just passed, or you didn't share, you've changed the future.
That's very true.
There's a really great film, The Family Man, with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
And he relives that moment when he could have had a different choice, and he looks at what his life would have been like if he'd made that one different choice. And that's it here, because when we share, we've changed the future for ourselves, for that person, for everybody beyond, for infinity. And when we don't change, we've also changed the future. And I guess I've always been pressed upon me, because we had somebody in our group who had a friend who'd had breast cancer. And in losing those organs, it went to her lung, and she had some of her ribs removed, and they rebuilt her ribs. And then the end result was they offered the opportunity to remove her right arm as a preventative from it going further. Don't ask me why, because I still haven't worked that one out at all. And I had a conversation with her because she was being referred through, and I was kind of just helping her learn about the technology. And I sent her to one of the websites to listen to Dr. Samuelson, and she called me back. And she was blown away by what she learned. She was so grateful for it. But it pressed upon me so badly, because she said, I keep wondering, what if someone had told me about this a year ago before I had my arm off? And it was like, oh my goodness me.
Wow, that's
Carolyn, that something has been in my brain that I've been thinking that I should share, and now I know why I didn't share it before, because I always have people come to my mind that I haven't spoken to in a long time, and I think, well, I don't know if they have a health challenge. I don't know, how am I going to share this with them? And I will literally just ring them up, and I'll say, you've been on my mind, you've been on my heart, and so I've wanted to call you, and I have something that I would like to share with you. And I don't know if this message is for you, or if you are the connector and the messenger, and this information is supposed to go to somebody else. But I'm working with something right now. I've discovered something right now that is pretty profound. Can I share this information with you, and you'll decide what you're supposed to do with it and who it's supposed to go to? And I'm being truthful, honestly truthful. I don't know why Aunt Nancy or, Uncle Gene, is on my mind day after day after day. And I'm just honest, and I'll share that with them, and they'll be like, well, yeah, thank you for thinking of me. And so I'll share the information, and then I'll say, does this make any sense to you? Did somebody come to your mind? yourself or another family member or a neighbor? Is there somebody that you think that needs this information? And time again, they say, yeah, me.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Or yeah, my wife, or, you know, our dog.
Yeah.
And we put it out there, and we just have no expectation to sell something. I'm not in this because I want to sell something. I'm in this because I want to change lives, and I want to give people a gift. And the gift is information, and the gift is hope.
Right. It is hope. It's absolutely hope.
Yeah.
It's hope for them and for everybody beyond. It's that, you know, tsunami of influence that goes on, and not being tied to the outcome, but just the process of the sharing.
Right. Right. And the difference that we have is, you know, when we take something out of a bottle that, you know, it's a lot of these things that we take backs our body up against the wall and says, you will do this now. You will respond this way. You will, this is how, you know, you will have this happen. And, then, you know, there's other things that come along with it. When we work with having the body repair itself, it's just a gentle, wow, I remember how to do that. Oh yeah, I can do that again. Oh, I'm supposed to do that. Sure. It just hears the programming. It hears the messages, and it just does it. And it's just such a gentle revision, a gentle restoration. And it's not, you know, I don't know a lot of people that it's, you know, swift and overnight, but our issues came upon it over decades.
Right.
Why are we setting ourselves up with a false expectation to say nothing happened in 30 days? Well, hello, you were 14 when that came on. Or, I mean, I don't say that. I, you know, please don't take that as being crass. I say that to myself too sometimes, you know, but we want to set the proper expectation of, your body has been dealing with something for a long, long time. And before it came upon to show up in that blood test, it was already working. I mean, we have various stages of degradation in the body, and there's multiple ones. I think there's 4 levels of degradation before it shows up on a blood test or imaging or anything. And so it was way before that when things were going off. You know, Carolyn, can you speak to that any further? That's something that, you know, I know you might have some thoughts on.
Actually, I do.
We didn't practice this, honest, Jim.
Yeah.
No, I found it because I created this back in the early 2000s, and it comes from Myron Brim's Director of Clinical Nutrition from Hoffman La Roche, and I made this. This is the 5 stages of deficiency.
You might have to shoot me a copy of that.
Yep, it's true.
Well, the last thing I want to bring up, and you brought up a movie, one of my favorite movies, and I'm an ex-stockbroker, but is The Pursuit of Happiness.
Oh, yeah, lovely film.
And I had a chance to meet that man that was that broker.
Wow.
Nice.
And the success rate of brokerage is minimal. And he demonstrated something, and Buffy, or something you said, you had someone come to your mind. But if we could just coach people to reach out to just 2 people a day.
Yeah.
But it was the pursuit of happiness, because I know as an ex-stockbroker, the majority of people are not set financially.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have it. But if you do want the happiness, if you do want the blessings of what this can perform, what this can do for us, we must go out and talk to people. And we don't make it salesy. We just go out and share from the heart like we're coaching here.
Right.
But if you do that on a consistent basis, and you don't allow that rejection to destroy you, and you just keep going and talking to people, you will have happiness for multiple generations with what this opportunity can create.
It's true.
Yeah. And it's a seed. It's a seed that planted. I've had people tell me no, and they've come back later and they've said, you know what? I think maybe I do want to try that. It does it, and it grew. You know, the idea grew, and it just took time. So
sometimes people watch you. Because I've had people come back and say, "Oh, are you still doing that ASEA thing?"
Same here.
They're watching, you know, and then they come back and they say, "Wow, they haven't seen you for a while. You're looking amazing, right?"
That is very true. Well, ladies, thank you. We've taken a lot of your time. I can't thank you enough for this. This has been a blessing.
Thank you. It's a
Bye,
blessing.
guys. Thank you, ladies.
Bye.
You bet.
Thank
See
you.
you soon.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye.